The Aegis sliced through the void, a lone predator in the shadow of a Titan. The Dominion fleet loomed ahead, row upon row of warships, their hulls black as the abyss, studded with pulse cannons that could tear planets to cinders. And at their heart, the Apex Dominus, a fortress of steel and arrogance. Inside the Aegis, Captain Elias Vance stood at the helm, his silhouette carved in the pale blue glow of the displays. His voice was steady, but tension coiled beneath it. Last chance to back out. Back out? Logan Reyes, the team's wildcard, grinned as he slapped a fresh mag into his railgun. I haven't even had fun yet. Dr. Nadia Kessler, problem solver, scientist, and the only sane one aboard, exhaled through her nose. This isn't fun. This is a suicide mission with extra steps. Vance turned. I need solutions, not cold feet. She held his gaze. Solutions are what I do. Just don't get sentimental when I tell you you're insane. Noted, he said, then looked at Talia Monroe, their dreamer. She was hunched over the terminal, fingers dancing across keys, eyes sharp as she traced enemy movements. The general is aboard the Apex Dominus, she confirmed. We take him out. We rip the head off the snake. Vance nodded. Then let's start cutting. The Aegis drifted through the shattered hull of an old Dominion warship, its broken frame masking their sensor signature. Outside, the enemy fleet pulsed with distant energy bursts, patrols moving in precise, calculated arcs. Monroe? Vance asked. Calculating approach vector, she muttered, her brow furrowed. Their scanning AI is evolving. It's predicting our trajectory before we even commit. Which means, Reyes asked, already bored. We don't fly in, Kessler said. We fall in. Reyes's grin widened. Now we're talking. Vance keyed the thrusters and killed them an instant later. The Aegis went dark, inertia carrying them in a slow, silent descent. Inside the cockpit, the only sounds were the hushed breath of 4 humans and the distant thrum of the Dominion fleet. Time stretched. Then Monroe's screen flickered. We're in their kill box. The moment she said it, the void erupted. On the bridge of the Apex Dominus, General Torvath studied the holographic battlefield with practiced disinterest. Humanity was finished. Their fleets were gone, their armies shattered. Earth itself lay under strict quarantine, its cities dark, its people starving under blockade. The war had been disappointing. Status? He asked. His second-in-command, Kelrath, scuttled closer. Fleet perimeter remained secure, but there was a momentary sensor ghost near Sector 3. A malfunction? Kelrath hesitated. Unclear. The AI marked it as a potential anomaly. Then it disappeared. Torvath's mandibles clicked softly. The humans do not attack with fleets, he murmured. They attack with desperation. A silent order went out. Sensors sharpened. Patrols shifted. The Dominion turned its gaze toward the void, searching, and below their notice the Aegis kept falling. Reyes saw the first warning flash on his HUD. They know something is here. We keep going, Vance said, gripping the controls, not changing course. Monroe's hands flew across the terminal. I'm feeding their AI false data. Every second counts. Below them, the Apex Dominus grew larger, an endless sprawl of armor and turrets. Its hangars were closed, its defenses primed. Kessler's voice was tight. How exactly are we landing? Vance hit a switch. Controlled crash, Reyes whooped. Now we're talking. The Aegis hit the outer hull like a thunderclap, magnetic clamps engaging a heartbeat before impact. Inside, metal groaned. Alarms blared, but they were in. Go, 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 Vance barked. The hatch hissed open. Reyes was first out, railgun up, boots slamming against the deck. Monroe and Kessler followed, weapons drawn, faces taut. Vance was last, sealing the breach behind them. Their mission had just begun. The interior of the Apex Dominus was cold and clinical, sterile halls of dark alloy, pulsing with blue control nodes. Kessler pulled up a hollow map, whispering, Command deck is 12 levels up. If we... A sharp chitter echoed down the corridor. Reyes turned, raising his gun. We've got company. A squad of Dominion enforcers rounded the bend, tall insectoid warriors clad in kinetic armor, weapons humming with stored plasma. The first one opened its mandibles to speak. Reyes shot it in the face. The crack of the railgun was deafening. The enforcer's head snapped back, a hole where its eyes had been. The others recoiled, just in time for Monroe to drop a flash charge. Light exploded. Vance was already moving. 2 shots. 1 kill. Another. Kessler ducked, aimed, fired, center mass. The enforcer staggered. She finished it with a second shot. The last Dominion warrior hesitated, just a fraction of a second. Reyes capitalized, slamming the butt of his rifle into its thorax. It hit the ground, twitching. Silence. Monroe exhaled. Well, that was loud. Kessler scowled. Subtle as always, Reyes. He shrugged. Hey, they started it. Vance tapped his earpiece. Move! We don't have time for... A deep reverberation rolled through the ship. A sound like shifting plates, distant and vast. Monroe's eyes widened. They just locked the entire deck, Kessler swore. They're sealing us in. Reyes cracked his knuckles. Then we blow our way out. Vance's jaw tightened. Number we go up. They won't expect it. He pointed to a vertical maintenance shaft embedded in the wall, just wide enough to climb. Kessler hesitated. You want us to scale the inside of an alien warship? Yes. Monroe checked her rifle. I've done worse. Reyes grinned. I like this plan. Vance stepped forward, gripping the ladder. Then let's... On the command deck, Torvath leaned forward, watching the security feeds. He had expected panic survivors, outmatched stragglers. Instead, he saw something else. Precision, coordination, adaptability. The humans fought like creatures with nothing left to lose, but everything still worth fighting for. Torvath had crushed countless rebellions. He had eradicated entire species, and yet, for the first time in his long, victorious life, he felt it. A whisper, a warning, fear, and the humans were still coming. But move. The Dominion warship trembled, metal groaning as the lockdown engaged. Bulkheads sealed. Pressure doors slammed shut. Captain Elias Vance barely noticed. His grip was firm on the ladder's cold rungs, his breath measured. Above him the maintenance shaft stretched upward, 12 levels of steel and darkness. Move! He ordered, voice calm. Behind him, Talia Monroe climbed fast, her rifle slung tight against her back. Above her, Nadia Kessler adjusted a harness of microcharges, hands steady despite the tension. Logan Reyes brought up the rear, grinning even as he wiped sweat from his brow. Hell of a workout, Reyes muttered. Monroe didn't look down. Shut up and climb. The shaft was narrow, the air thick with the scent of ionized metal. Somewhere below, the Dominion was moving, organizing, adapting. Vance kept his focus up. Kessler, ETA on breach. She checked her wrist display. 1 minute. If we're not in position when this charge blows, we're going down hard. Reyes chuckled. Sounds like a don't be slow situation. Vance's earpiece crackled. Monroe's voice was tight. We have a problem. He twisted, following her gaze, downward. Far below, shadows flickered. Then came the unmistakable clink of claws on metal. Dominion hunters, 6-legged, razor-limbed, built for pursuit, and they were already climbing. Double time it! Vance barked. The team surged upward, muscles burning. The hunters moved faster, their movements jerky but relentless, mandibles clicking in eerie synchronization. Kessler's breath hitched. They're gaining! Reyes yanked his pistol from his belt. Not for long. One-handed he fired. The first shot slammed into a hunter's skull. The second took another in the chest, knocking it loose, sending it screeching into the abyss below. But the rest didn't stop. Keep climbing, Vance ordered. Kessler reached the breach point. 10 seconds. The hunters lunged. Monroe pivoted mid-climb, fired twice. A hunter's leg snapped backward. It fell, but another took its place instantly. 5 seconds, Reyes growled. I hate these things. He reached for a grenade, yanked the pin with his teeth, and dropped it. A concussive blast tore through the shaft. Bodies tumbled, screeches filled the void. Then, boom! The breach charge had detonated. The blast ripped open the floor above, exposing a Dominion control hub. Vance surged through the opening, hauling Kessler up as alarms screamed. Monroe followed, Reyes hot on her heels. Behind them, the shaft collapsed, crushing the remaining hunters beneath twisted debris. Vance turned, scanning the room. It was a command nexus, a circular chamber of hollow terminals. Dominion officers frozen in shock as 4 armored humans burst from the ceiling like vengeful spirits. For a single heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Reyes opened fire. Reyes was fast. Vance was faster. His rifle barked, cutting down 2 officers before they could reach their weapons. Monroe pivoted, firing controlled bursts. Kessler took cover, eyes darting across the consoles. Dominion guards stormed in from an adjoining corridor. Vance didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen officer's plasma carbine, switched it to full charge, and threw it. The weapon detonated mid-air, sending alien bodies sprawling. Reyes let out a low whistle. "Nice throw, Cap." "Focus," Vance snapped. "Kessler?" She was already at the main console, fingers flying across the interface. "I can kill their security grid, but I need time." Monroe took position at her flank, laying down suppressive fire. Reyes reloaded, smirking. "We've got company." More Dominion troops surged in. He welcomed them with a grenade. The explosion rocked the chamber. Kessler gritted her teeth. Almost there. The lights flickered, then died. A low hum vibrated through the ship. Vance's earpiece crackled. "What the hell was that?" Monroe asked. Kessler's face was pale. "That wasn't me." The chamber doors slammed shut. Deep within the Apex Dominus, General Torvath watched the security feed. His officers lay dead. The command nexus was breached. The humans were inside his walls, adapting, evolving, using Dominion weapons, turning the ship itself into their battlefield. And yet, he was calm. His claw hovered over a control node. "Activate Havoc Protocol." A Dominion officer hesitated. "Sir, that will do it." A final button press, and the ship changed. In an instant, the walls of the ship shifted. Corridors sealed, bulkheads restructured. Artificial gravity surged and faltered in random bursts. The ship's own design, once logical, rigid, now bent, twisted, became an impossible labyrinth. Kessler's display scrambled. "They're rewriting the ship's structure in real time." Reyes swore. "That's bad." Monroe's jaw clenched. "They just turned the ship into a goddamn death trap." Vance looked up at the ceiling. It was breathing, panels shifting like muscle under skin. Then the floor dropped out beneath them. The entire room collapsed, sending them into freefall. Wind roared, metal blurred past. Vance twisted midair, arms reaching, grabbing Monroe's wrist. Reyes snagged Kessler by the vest. The world spun, the ship breaking every rule of physics. Below them an abyss yawned open, black, endless, and at the very bottom, something waited, something alive. The fall was endless. The mission had just changed. Wind roared past Elias Vance's ears as gravity betrayed them, the ship's shifting architecture twisting space itself. He held on to Talia Monroe's wrist with a death grip, his mind racing. Above him, Logan Reyes had one arm locked around Nadia Kessler's vest, his other hand scrambling for something, anything to slow their descent. The abyss yawned below. Then, impact. Vance slammed into something hard, pain jolting through his ribs. His grip ripped free from Monroe, and she tumbled downward, arms flailing, until she hit a wall, the sudden shift in gravity slamming her sideways instead of down. Reyes landed feet first, absorbing the shock with a grunt. Kessler wasn't so lucky. She crashed, shoulder first, onto the same surface, gasping in pain. The floor wasn't a floor. It was the side of a massive chamber, a space so vast it could have swallowed a city whole. Walls curved like rib bones. shifting and twitching as if the ship itself were alive. Vance pushed himself up, ignoring the screaming protest of his body. He turned, scanning the others. Sound off. Alive, Monroe grunted, rubbing her bruised arm. Still pretty, Reyes added, shaking out his legs. Kessler sat up, wincing. I hate this ship. They had fallen into a core chamber, but nothing about it was mechanical. Thick, vein-like conduits ran along the walls, pulsing like arteries. The air hummed, vibrating in their chests. The Dominion weren't just controlling the ship. They had grown it. Monroe's eyes darted across the organic expanse. This isn't technology. It's biology. Kessler nodded, brushing dust from her visor. The Dominion don't build warships. They breed them. Reyes scowled. You're telling me we're inside a giant metal lung? More like a nervous system, Kessler corrected. She pointed to a pulsating column of light in the distance. A nerve cluster, connected to every shifting corridor above them. That's why the ship keeps changing. It's thinking. Vance didn't waste time. Then we shut it down. The chamber sloped downward, spiraling into a core of churning energy. The air grew thicker, charged with static. They moved quickly, rifles up, steps careful. A deep thrum echoed through the space. Then the walls twitched. Vance stopped cold. Did anyone else see? The wall beside him peeled open. A Dominion Guardian dropped from the ceiling. It wasn't like the others. This one was bigger, its carapace lined with shifting plates of chitin and alloy, grown from the ship itself. Its mandibles clacked in a slow, deliberate rhythm, a predator's taunt. Reyes exhaled. Oh, that's just ugly. The Guardian moved. It lunged, bladed limbs slicing through the air. Vance dodged. Barely. Steel raked against his armor as he rolled clear. Reyes fired first, railgun barking. The shot hit center mass, but the creature's carapace absorbed it. Armor's too thick, Reyes shouted. Monroe pivoted, unloading 2 shots into its joints. The Guardian staggered, screeching as molten blue ichor splattered across the floor. Kessler sprinted to the nerve cluster, working fast. Keep it busy! Vance drew his knife, ducked under a sweeping claw, and drove the blade into its neck joint. The Guardian roared, swiping him aside like a rag doll. Vance hit the ground hard, the impact stealing his breath. Blood filled his mouth. Reyes was already moving. He planted a boot on the creature's back and jammed a grenade into the wound. He leapt clear. The Guardian shuddered, its armor splitting. Monroe fired a final shot, straight through the exposed joint. The beast collapsed. Silence. Then Kessler exhaled. I got it. The walls convulsed. The nerve cluster died. Above them the ship screamed, a deep, guttural wail, as if the entire structure had felt the blow. The shifting corridors froze. From the bridge of the Apex Dominus, General Torvath watched the collapse in disbelief. The humans had found the ship's core, identified it, attacked it, and won. Impossible. They weren't supposed to understand Dominion biotech. They weren't supposed to adapt this fast. Yet here they were. His mandibles clicked. Seal them in, he ordered. Flood the chamber with phase venom. His officer hesitated. Sir, that will kill our... Torvath turned slowly. The officer shut his mouth and obeyed. Kessler's screen flashed red. Something's coming, she breathed. The walls opened, revealing vent-like structures. A deep hiss filled the air. Reyes's nose wrinkled. What the hell is that smell? Monroe's voice was sharp. Gas. Vance didn't hesitate. Masks on, now. They sealed their helmets as the first waves of green vapor billowed into the chamber. A Dominion death toxin, phase venom. Not just a killer, a dissolver. Kessler's voice shook. Even our armor won't hold against this for long. Vance's mind raced. Options. Monroe scanned the chamber. There, emergency conduit. A narrow passage led down, deep, too deep. Reyes grimaced. Great, into the stomach. Vance didn't argue. Move! They sprinted, the venom swarming behind them, eating through steel, chasing them downward into the unknown depths. And somewhere far below, something was waiting. The Dominion's phase venom devoured everything. Steel, flesh, bone. It hissed against the walls, turning bulkheads into dripping slag, racing after the humans like a living tide. Elias Vance ran, lungs burning, boots hammering against the shifting deck. Talia Monroe was right behind him, rifle slung as she sprinted. Logan Reyes dragged Nadia Kessler forward. She was fast, but the wound on her shoulder slowed her. The emergency conduit spiraled downward, narrowing with every step. It felt like the ship itself was swallowing them whole. Behind them, the toxin closed in. Monroe glanced back. "We're not going to outrun it." "Then we drop," Vance growled. He grabbed the edge of the last platform and jumped into the dark. The others didn't hesitate. Reyes shoved Kessler ahead and leapt. Monroe followed, vanishing into the black. Gravity caught them. Wind howled past. The walls blurred, flashing with streaks of biolight. Then impact. They slammed into a slick, undulating surface. Not metal, not flesh. Something between. It moved beneath them. Vance rolled, instinct kicking in, rifle up, eyes scanning. They had landed in the lowest chamber of the ship. And they weren't alone. It was a cathedral of living metal. A vast, circular space, pulsing with deep, rhythmic thuds, the heartbeat of the ship. Towering nerve spires lined the walls, crackling with raw energy. A singular cocooned structure lay in the center, wrapped in glistening black sinew. Inside, something twitched. Kessler coughed, pushing herself up. "What the hell is this place?" Monroe's voice was grim. "The control core." Reyes reloaded. "Well, that's convenient." Vance felt it before he saw it. A shift in the air, a ripple of tension, the way prey feels a predator's gaze. From the shadows, a massive form unfolded. General Torvath stepped forward. Not a screen, not a projection in the flesh, and he had evolved. His exoskeleton was armored with the ship's own plating, reinforced by layers of biosteel. His arms elongated and razor-edged. His 4 eyes gleamed in the dim light. "Humans!" His voice was slow, deliberate, final. "You were not meant to reach this place." Reyes scoffed. "Yeah, well, we're bad at following rules." Torvath didn't move. He didn't need to. The walls shuddered. From the nerve spires, guardians emerged, twisted, half-formed war beasts. Their bodies fused to the ship, eyes blank, limbs jerking in unnatural spasms. Monroe cursed. "They're part of the ship now." Vance didn't hesitate. "Then we take them apart." The fight exploded. Reyes unloaded his railgun, rounds punching through carapace. Monroe moved like a phantom, dropping shots into weak points. Kessler planted detonators, dodging between pulses of energy. Vance faced Torvath. The general lunged. Vance barely dodged. Claws slashed past his head, sparks flying as they ripped through the deck. He countered with a burst of gunfire. Torvath absorbed it, charging through like a living tank. Monroe shouted, "Cap! Move!" Vance pivoted, too slow. Torvath's fist caught him square in the chest. The world blurred. Vance crashed into a support beam, ribs snapping like dry twigs. Pain. Blinding pain. Through his visor, he saw Torvath approach. The general raised a clawed hand, prepared to end it. Then Reyes tackled him from behind. "Not today, Bugface." They hit the ground hard. Kessler's voice rang out. "Charge is set. We need to move." Monroe was already moving. She grabbed Vance, pulling him to his feet. "You with me?" Vance forced himself up. "Always." Torvath rose, snarling. Reyes grinned. "Hey, ugly." He held up a detonator. Torvath's eyes widened. Boom! The world erupted. The charges detonated, ripping through the core. The ship screamed, a sound deeper than sound. Something primal, something dying. The nerve spires collapsed. The walls peeled apart, membranes shredding as structural integrity gave way. The ship was coming apart. Vance's mind snapped into focus. "Evac point!" Kessler checked her display, then froze. "There isn't one." Silence. The realization hit all at once. The Dominion had trapped them here. Monroe swallowed hard. "So this is it?" Reyes huffed. "Damn. I had a really good joke lined up, too. Vance took a slow breath. No panic. Not yet. Then a transmission. A voice, crackling through their comms. Hold on, you primitive apes. We're coming. Here, from the void, the human fleet arrived. Destroyers, battle cruisers, flagships. They pounded through Dominion defenses, engines roaring, weapons screaming. Then a single ship broke through the chaos, diving toward the dying warship. Their ride. The comm crackled again. Commander Briggs sounded smug. You lunatics better be ready to jump. The Aegis dove, cutting through the collapsing wreckage. The team ran, no hesitation, no second chances. The hangar doors opened and Monroe went first, leaping into the abyss. Reyes followed, dragging Kessler. Vance was last. The ship exploded behind him. He jumped. For a split second, he was weightless. The stars stretched out before him. Then, impact. The Aegis caught him. The doors slammed shut. The ship pulled up, engines roaring. Vance lay on the deck, heart hammering. Monroe exhaled. That was insane. Reyes laughed. That was human. Kessler smiled. Damn right. From the bridge, Briggs' voice crackled through the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, you just killed a Dominion flagship from the inside out. Vance closed his eyes, exhaling. He could already imagine the headlines. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of war, and the galaxy would never forget.